All right, Jeff. So, been a professional punter, successful professional punter for 17 years. People can't see it, but I'm in a man cave that's bigger than my flat. When I first spoke to you, you kindly spoke to me when you were in Australia on holiday.
Yeah.
You told me you got off to more exotic parts again to get away from this cold. I mean, does a punting life give you freedom, or are you, in reality, a slave to it wherever you go in the world?
Um, Definitely, yes, I am a slave to it. I would do three. If I was going to say 365 days a year, but I did take Christmas Day off this year, so 364 days. Even when I'm away, as you say, I was in Australia, and the time difference didn't help because that was 11 hours in front of England, so that didn't help. But I would still do every day a good 3 to 4 hours wherever I'm in the world. Um, it's just something I wouldn't know what to do if I got up and didn't do it. So yeah, I do. And I start when I'm here. I start at 6 o'clock prompt. If it's a busy day, it could be 5, 4. I've even seen me get up at 2 a.m. when it's a real busy day to do that, to do the work.
Okay, so when you're on holiday, when you're in Australia, for example, you still punting.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course.
So
Using my VPN.
well, I know that you're in contact with other professional punters because one of them put you up for this, and the other one asked me to say hello. So do you get your heads together, as in actually what bets to strike? Oh,
No, I wouldn't say. Yeah, we speak. I speak to 2 or 3 people regularly, but no, I prefer to do my own thing. If I get it wrong, I've nobody else to blame.
okay, so you're not like a part of a network that
No,
sort of
definitely not.
you wouldn't bet anything on anybody else's advice.
Never say never, but 99% of the time, definitely not.
Okay, so you're a professional punter. You've got no other form of income apart from gambling.
Yeah.
So how do you structure what you do? Have you got like a separate amount of money that you divide into stakes, or have you got it all on spreadsheets? You know, how methodical and business-like is
Oh,
it?
very much. I record every single bet I have. I could go back years and you'd see every bet that I've struck. That's the only way to know where you are.
And knowing where we are, I mean, looking around us, I'm assuming that week to week you don't have to win to pay the bills.
No.
So you're comfortable enough that there's a psychological cushion.
Yeah. That makes a huge difference.
Have you, are you still up in the game as far as stakes and what you're trying to win goes, or have you set yourself a level and you're quite comfortable with it?
Um, I wouldn't say I've set myself a level, but sometimes you feel not comfortable if you go over a figure. And I wouldn't know what that figure is, but sometimes you go, I've had a little bit much on there. But I mean, I would stake between 8 to 10 grand a day, and on a busy-ish day, it could get higher than that come middle of summer when there's 5, 6 meetings. But I'm in control of it. I can walk away if I don't need to. If I do have a bad run, I'm happy to take a couple of days off, just let the cobwebs blow out the brain. I think you've got to. I think this job can really get to you if you don't just walk away sometimes.
We haven't mentioned this about the questions, but it's interesting you should say that because you can walk away with it from it for a couple of days if you have a bad run.
Yeah.
Why can't you just think sod it for the time you're on holiday?
Because I think it's like putting a jigsaw together. And if you take a few days off, you've got pieces missing. So from my perspective, listen, if you punt as a hobby, go and have your 2 weeks holiday. You don't need to look at it. But this is not a hobby to me. This is my only source of income. So I have to get it right. And I really can't take my eye off the ball.
Now, the best judges I've ever met have all admitted to some really quite bad losing runs. What would be a losing run? At what point would it get to the point where you start getting a bit twitchy?
I try and not judge daily. I try and not judge weekly. I would judge monthly. So it's if I have a bad month, if I don't show a profit in a month is when I start getting twitchy. And I just had 2 months in, which I think would be September and October of this year. And I hadn't had a losing month for about 14 months. And then September and October, the wheels fell off and I had no clue why. And it didn't matter what I did, could not do anything right. And I just had to take a little bit of time away. Otherwise, it's mental as much as financial.
Yeah, but that sounds quite positive because you would base that on having 2 months where you didn't win, but
Didn't win, lost.
lost.
There's a big difference between not winning. I lost.
But you haven't sort of judged it on 30 consecutive losing days or something like that.
I look per calendar month. I've got everything logged. I say I've got all my bets recorded for the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, and I can look at any month and see whether I won or lost in that month. And I say September, October, just couldn't do anything right, and I lost substantial.
Okay, and I'm not expecting you to, obviously you're not going to tell me exactly what happens here, but I'm assuming that if you ring up a bookmaking firm and ask to open an account, please, they're not over enamoured in taking your bets. So what's the practicalities of you getting on?
Oh, this is interesting, seeing as you're from Star Sports, because Star Sports...
I'm a freelancer.
Right.
Well, Star Sports do employ me to do these. They're
Okay.
a great bookmaking firm. If anyone's not got
I
their
know.
account.
I'm going to agree with that. I think they are. Apart from they don't let me get on before 10 o'clock price wise, but there you go. Bookmakers close you down these days, not only for winning, but for losing as well. So if you win too much or lose too much, they close you down. So it's nigh on impossible. I mean, I've exhausted everybody I know to open accounts and then see them close. I mean, 1 year we had 84 accounts closed in one summer alone. But it's not as easy as that. I just had a nameless firm who've just refused to pay out £7,000 in winnings to somebody who'd got an account. So it's difficult. I mean, 90% of my bets are not with mainstream bookmakers.
I mean, would you personally consider going racing and having it on again?
No, because I think the most important thing is the early prices. And by the time you go racing, everybody knows.
Yeah, and I think you said to me when we were chatting when you were in Australia that you do most of your betting in the morning.
Yeah.
Before 10 o'clock. That must make it double tricky.
As I told you, I start at 6. My bets are usually on by 8:45 at the latest. I think that's your golden hour between 8 and 9. By 9 o'clock, the bookmakers have caught hold of what's happening. So, no, you've got to get your bets on early.
Yeah. So, I mean, people are always talking about the black market and stuff. Is that something that you've sort of looked into?
I have. I don't know what you class as the black market, really. I suppose it's anybody who's not a high street or a mainstream bookmaker. So, yeah, I've got somebody that would take the bulk of my bets. I haven't physically opened an account with one of these Asian companies or whoever else. And given the fact I say one bookmaker has just refused to pay out £7,000 in winnings to me, it just worries you a little bit. But how do you get on? I don't know how you get on at early prices. Nobody wants to lay you. I see now so many bookmakers now taking back the best odds guaranteed and all these sorts of things. It's tough times for a punter.
Wouldn't you think that if the bookmakers took away all that and these justice payments, best odds guaranteed, extra places, and started laying people like you to lose a certain amount of money, that would be beneficial to you? Because some of the Australian punters I've spoken to, 30 accounts, they can back horse to win $2,000 on each of them.
I understand so, yeah. Apparently they're not allowed to close accounts over there, are they?
No, they've got to lay, if the price is there, but the price only gets laid once and then it's...
Yeah, listen, I would love that. I mean, I'm not having a go at Sky Bet per se, but, their way of getting out of laying best odds guaranteed is to put an extra place on. well, whoopity-doo. If I'm not backing each way, which I'm not, what is that any use to me? That's no good to me having 5 places when I want to back the horse that wins. It's just, I don't, this is a whole new subject, and I don't have a lot of time for bookmakers at all. It's basically their way or no way.
Okay, so finally, give us some good practice to help aspiring punters that want to be like you to win. Turn their game around.
Okay. Few that I've written down is stick to what you know. Firstly, I only ever bet horse racing. I'm not tempted by betting on other sports or casinos. So just stick to what you know. Number 2, identify the races where there's a potential bet. There's a race every few minutes. You don't have to bet in all of them. Most are geared up for the bookmaker to win. So identify the races. That's important. Number 3, limit
So what sort of races are they?
Ultra competitive races where you can look at the market, for example, and 5 and 6, 7 horses are priced roughly the same. Put figures to them. The figures come out roughly the same. So basically, it's too much chance involved. I like to look at a race and see where my figures back up that there's only 2 or 3 potential winners in a race. I don't want to be clever and find 16 to 1 shots, because the bulk of them will get beat. Yeah, one will win occasionally, and you'll remember it and you'll talk about it, but then count all the losers in between. So that would be how I would say I identify them, suit me. I tell you, I put figures to them 11 o'clock yesterday for today's racing, and then identify, do I want to look at those races? Because I'll spend up to 45 minutes to an hour looking at one race. So I don't want to be trying to do 10, 12 races. That would just no time. 3, limit the amounts of bets that you have. I try and limit it to 2 or 3 bets a day. Don't spread yourself too thin. Because if you really fancy them, you've got a limited fund and you really fancy them, you want all of it or most of it on that. You don't want to having 5, 6 bets where there's a fifth of that. You want it, the one that you really like, you want to be hitting hard. So limit the amount of bets to 2 or 3. Always try and beat the price, number 4. And this we touched on earlier. Get your bets on early. Remember that backing a horse at 4 to 1 at 8:30 or 3 to 1 at 9 o'clock, the amount you would have got, the difference is the amount that will pay for your next losing bet. So the price is mega important. Number 5, try not to let the market influence you too much. It's only somebody else's opinion, the market. So if you've got strong views, stick to that. Obviously, if something opens at 2 to 1, it goes out to 8 to 1, it ain't winning. But generally speaking, if you've got a strong opinion, don't let the market influence you too much. Number 6, try and remain disciplined at all times. Sometimes you can lose money and you've got to get it back today. So I'm going to go in heavy. No, there's racing tomorrow. Doesn't matter if you lose today and win tomorrow. Just don't. Keep your head together. Get up, walk away, as the TV ads say. But it's serious. Just try and remain disciplined. But the 2 most important things for me, and I've touched on both, you've got to use figures to back up what you see. Your eyes will often deceive you. If I run past some dustbins, I'll look impressive. But you've got to put figures to that to see whether those figures back up what you've seen. If they don't, be prepared to walk away. But figures for me, the most important thing. And number 8, the last one, is write down every single bet you have. I've yet to meet anybody who think they lose money backing horses. But yet, 95% of people do lose. So I don't know where all the losers are hiding. So unless you can put your bets down and look at them and go, I lost, I won, I'm sorry, I can't take that seriously. So that would be my 8 points that I would suggest will stand you in good stead.
And very finally, Jeff, if anybody learns off of this and actually becomes successful, would you recommend the life of a professional punter?
Definitely not. Definitely not. It is, listen, the good times are great. The bad times, and it's a lot. I'm in a better position now. So as you said before, I can stand a losing run. But when you can't stand a losing run, and I remember, and I hadn't even thought about this, but I remember, I can't even remember what year it was, but I'd split up from my missus and I'd moved to Newmarket and then I'd moved back here and I couldn't afford to pay the mortgage. And I had a huge bet on a Mark Johnson horse at Newmarket and everything depended on it. I'd have probably lost the house in those days. I mean, it's 14, 15 years ago. It won, but that's what I call pressure. And no. Have a safety net. If you've got another job, great.
On that note, Jeff, bet responsibly, everyone.
Correct.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
You're welcome.